repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. It's the 9th of January 2016. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States. 4 p.m. in the Netherlands. I'm your host, Walter, with the Solvinur Event. What's up, everybody? How you doing? If you go to ucy.tv, there's a page there with a chat link. There's Jane and JJ. Morning. And there is a whole list of assorted media available at reallibertymedia.com on the left side. Among them Russia TV, for instance. It's okay to take a look there. You would wonder why, though, a Russian driven by money, Russia, and I think it's even linked to Putin himself for finances. How, the decision for them to make a English-speaking channel is, should say, enough, right? 8 Hawks, good morning. Right, so that should tell you enough about the agenda that they have. You don't go as a Russian leader. You want to influence people around you, right? You would have, and of course they do, have Russian language on it, but Russia TV is English. So that ought to tell you about the agenda that they have. Right? So, lighting my cigarette. And I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was going with that. I got a couple of things open. Only 2, I think. One we can do anyway, because there will be enough time to go into this. The biggest 9 unsolved mysteries in physics. It's a nice one, I think. But I don't know how interested you guys are in it. So if you want to know more about that, let me know and we'll go into that. It's an old article, actually, from 2012. 9 biggest unsolved mysteries in physics. And hermetics I got open. And that's a topic which could, fill many hours lots of things to go into. Thoth comes to mind, for instance. So those are the two things I have open. You can join me if you like at Solvinur, S-O-L-V from Victor, I, N from Nico, U-R, and that's Solvinur at Skype. You can send me a message if I'm on your list. If I'm not, just send me a contact request and we'll get you on air. Alright. I don't know what's going on with my computer, but I click something and then it doesn't respond, or it responds like 10 seconds later. So that's a bit of annoying. I hope it doesn't influence the show too much today. Coffee, yeah. I hope you also have something to drink. So, okay, so no reactions in the chat so far, no problem. We'll just copy this, put that there, and go with it. Back to the chat. There we go. This is from Live Science. This is an introduction. In 1900, the British physicist Lord Kelvin is also known for temperature. You can put in Kelvin, Fahrenheit, Celsius. The British physicist Lord Kelvin is said to have pronounced, "There is nothing new to be discovered in physics now. All that remains is more and more precise measurement." Within 3 decades, quantum mechanics and Einstein's theory of relativity had revolutionized the field. Yeah. I'm still not sure what to think about all of that. I'm still struggling with the fact that I can't find a clear example of contradictions existing within nature, right? But then again, when you're talking quantum mechanics, we're going beyond the Planck level, and I understand that different rules apply. Right? I don't know if when you go beyond the Planck level, this is a measure you can look up, Planck. It's very, very small. And if you go beyond that measure, if you can even call that nature anymore. That sounds illogical, right? Just because it's smaller, then all of a sudden it's not nature. But it appears, at least according to these scientists, of which I have little respect, especially that Hawkins guy. Unfortunately, I stumbled across a quote or something like that of him, or an answer, where he was asked what was there before the Big Bang, and this turns into an issue about time. You know, he evades the question more or less. Maybe I didn't quote the question right, but anyway. He says there is no time, it doesn't exist before the Big Bang, so the question is irrelevant, it makes no sense, right? That's a nice evasion, right? Because according to their own laws, and also according to philosophy, you can't make something from nothing. It's just as simple as that. So, and he's evading that whole idea there, right? So that's not allowed. I guess that's a fallacy. Neglected aspect. I think that's the one. You see. So, not that I trust those people, but there seems to be some applicabilities to these quantum mechanic ideas. They have been put to practice, right? So what can you say about that? Today, no physicist would dare assert that our physical knowledge of the universe is near completion. To the contrary, each new discovery seems to unlock a Pandora's box of even bigger, even deeper physics questions. These are our picks of the most profound open questions. I guess Rupert Sheldrake would like this one, right? This is credited to NASA. Are you guys really that silent in the chat? I haven't seen these guys speak a word. What is dark energy? Yeah, this is my interpretation of it. You know, they have this working model of the universe, and then their measurements don't measure up with the model. So what do? They just add 74% of something which we can't see to the model and say this must exist. Right? So that's not how you do science. Science is you take measurements and then you base your theory on the measurements, on the facts, not the other way around. The article says, no matter how astrophysicists crunch the numbers, the universe simply doesn't add up. Yeah. I also tried some, how do you call that? Thought experiment. Trying to figure out where in the universe we are. And so according to science, this planet is 4 billion years old, right? So according to the scientists, the universe is about 15 to 17 billion years. So we are kind of latecomers, right? So you would suspect then that we are more or less on like 3/4 of the center away, assuming that it expands as a sphere. That we would be about 3/4 away from the center and 1/4 away from the edge, or something like that. You know, that's how they visualize this whole Big Bang theory to me, right? I might be wrong, but my question then is, how come if you point the infrared camera that they launched after Hubble, which is a better one, at a black spot in space, all you see is the past? Because that's what happens, right? If you see light from billions of light years away, you're looking into the past. And no matter where they look, they keep seeing that as if the Earth is at the center of the universe, something like that. That's the idea I'm getting from them. That doesn't make sense at all, to be honest with you. And I'm also wondering about this redshift. They could have used that Right? If you look at the stars and they have a redshift, you know they're moving away from you. Because they say, right, the scientists say, the space in between them is expanding in the time that it takes from the star to reach Earth. The light from the star to reach Earth. And so it's redshifted. Well, if you look then the other way, and you also see redshift, there must be some difference between them. If you accept the notion that there was this Big Bang and matter splat everywhere at a certain point, didn't exist just after the Big Bang, came into being a bit later, but still, there's no reason to assume that it only went in one direction. A spherical kind of idea comes to mind, right? So then you should see a difference in the redshift between the stars that are quote-unquote in front of you compared to the stars that are quote-unquote behind you. They should be able to figure that out just doing measurements. But I haven't seen anything about that. So there's a couple of things that just don't make sense to me, but I'm not a physicist, so just keep that in mind. Yeah. Right, so no matter how astrophysicists crunch numbers, the universe simply doesn't add up. That's the whole point. Right? That's what I said. They're making measurements and it doesn't fit the model that they have. That's why they say the universe simply doesn't add up. So what do? They invent some kind of energy called dark energy and then add that to the model instead of throwing away the model and working with the numbers that they're getting. That sounds to me like a more logical idea, right? Hey there, Hopper, how you doing? So even though the gravity is pulling inward on space-time, the fabric of the cosmos, it keeps expanding outward faster and faster. Yeah, that's also something that they found out, which, kind of set up their working idea of how the universe works. It made it useless. To account for this, astrophysicists have proposed an invisible agent that counteracts gravity by pushing space-time apart. They call it dark energy. Now we could click that. Alright, click and open it, but I don't know if we want to do that. In the most widely accepted model of dark energy, it is a cosmological constant, an inherent property of space itself, which has negative pressure driving space apart. As space expands, more space is created, and with it more dark energy. Based on the observed rate of expansion, scientists know that the sum of all dark energy must make up more than 70% of the total contents of the universe. Right, so how can you claim such a thing if you can't even show me the edge of the universe? How can you claim 70% if you can't show me the edge? Where does the universe end? You can't show me. So how can you make such a claim? But none know how to look for it. Right, so nobody knows how to see this invisible, talking about contradictions, right? Dark matter. Dark energy, sorry, dark matter is another part. So it's 74% dark energy, 22% dark matter, and then the rest. Yeah. Right, so stunning, unsolved mystery in physics. Next is what is dark matter. Evidently, about 84% of the matter in the universe does not absorb or emit light. Dark matter, as it is called, cannot be seen directly, and it hasn't yet been detected by indirect means either. Right, so you could detect it via gravity waves, for instance. A black hole can be found like that, for instance. You can't see a black hole, but because light bends around it, you could point to that direction and say, well, there has to be a black hole there. Instead, dark matter's existence and properties are inferred from its gravitational effects on visible matter, radiation, and the structure of the universe. This shadowy substance is thought to pervade the outskirts of galaxies, and not many, and may be composed of weakly interacting massive particles, or WIMPs. Worldwide, there are several detectors on the lookout for WIMPs, but so far not one has been found. And then clickable link to if not dark matter, then what? So not going there. Next. Why is there an arrow of time? Right. I don't know if this has to do with the ancient pre-Socratic philosopher. I don't know his name, Axenarius or something. Who came up with the idea that movement is impossible. And he comes up with paradox about the arrow moving. And if you look at each moment, it doesn't seem to be moving. So 7, why is there an arrow of time? Time moves forward, they say. Right, now that's a philosophical thing I would like to, question. I question the whole idea of time. As it was introduced to me, people pointed me to a clock and said, look, it's 4 o'clock, look, it's 5 o'clock, we call this time. Yeah. This is a totally arbitrary idea, in my opinion. Time moves forward because the property of the universe called entropy. Roughly defined as the level of disorder only increases, and so there is no way to reverse a rise in entropy after it has occurred. Alright, so I don't fully get what this says here. The fact that entropy increases is a matter of logic. There are more disordered arrangements of particles than there are ordered arrangements. And so, as things change, they tend to fall into disarray. Alright, I'm not quite sure what they mean with there are more disordered arrangements of particles than there are ordered arrangements. I mean, and I'm just speaking as simply as I can, I'm just asking the simple questions. They told me, these same people tell you that if you go out into space, it's a bunch of nothing. It's a whole lot of space with nothing in it. Right? So, it looks to me like the creation of a sun is an example of ordered matter, and a lot of it also. Or are they just saying, well, there's a lot of empty space, and that's it? That's the disorder or something. I don't see that. I don't, it doesn't appear plain and simple to me. Alright, so anyway, they say, and so as things change, they tend to fall into disarray. No? Define disarray. It seems to me, if you look at nature and you see the leaves fall off the trees, I wouldn't call that disarray. I would call that useful function of the leaves who get eaten by the worms which feed the tree, so. But the underlying question here is, why was entropy so low in the past? Put differently, why was the universe so ordered at its beginning? It was when a huge amount of energy was crammed together in a small amount of space. Yeah, is that so? Is that your idea of order, where there's a huge amount of energy crammed into a small space? Why? I don't understand. Anyway, that was about the arrow of time, which I don't understand the title either. Next, are there parallel universes? Yeah. That's a question that they have. Doesn't seem to be a problem. Astrophysical data suggest space-time might be flat. What do they mean with that? That was a couple of years ago, or maybe not so long. An article about, is the universe flat? That also kind of took me like, huh? And they also put it in quotes, so I don't know what they mean with flat. Astrophysical data suggests space-time might be flat rather than curved. Right, space curving. You've heard that idea before, right? About space curving. Something to do with gravity. Alright, try this again. Astrophysicist, astrophysical data. Yeah. You can't right-click that and see what it is, by the way. Suggests space-time might be flat rather than curved, and thus that it goes on forever. Alright, that's a nice claim. It says here, astrophysical data suggest that space-time might go on forever. So if that's the case, how much is 70% of forever? From the dark energy. How much is 70% of forever? This doesn't make sense, people. I would say those numbers are arbitrary. Especially if it goes on forever. It's infinite. The only word you can use is infinite. A bit of infinite is still infinite. If so, then the region we can see, which we think of as the universe, is just one patch of an infinitely large quilted multiverse. Yeah, I don't understand what that is, Beth Z. I don't know if you're listening, but we were talking about space, and in the other chat, flat Earth seems to be the new truther movement. I don't understand that one bit, right? I believe it's a deliberate diversion. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. At the same time, the laws of quantum mechanics dictate that there are only a finite number of possible particle configurations within each cosmic patch. Some number 10 high 122 distinct possibilities. So within an infinite number of cosmic patches, the particle arrangements within them are forced to repeat infinitely many times over. Yeah, this discussion has been going on in philosophy for thousands of years. These are difficult questions to answer. Is there such a thing as infinity? This means there are infinitely many parallel universes, cosmic patches exactly the same as ours, containing something exactly like you. Yeah, that's brackets open, containing something exactly like you, brackets closed. Exactly like, why doesn't it say containing exactly you? As well as patches that differ by just one particle's position. So that's why. Patches that differ by two particle positions, and so on, down to the patches that are totally different from ours. This reminds me of the third man argument that is used against Plato's definition of forms. This leads to infinite. This may lead to infinite regress. I'm not sure, but if it does, then it's invalid, philosophically speaking. Is there something wrong with that logic, or is it bizarre outcome true? And if it is true, how might we ever detect the presence of parallel universes? Right, so my idea is that there is only one, but hey, Cap, Hopper, what's up? Yeah. Join me on Skype if you like. Join me on Skype if you like. So that was 6. 5. Why is there more matter than antimatter? Yeah, that's a good question, I suppose. What I remember from the books that I read is that was a question, in the creation of matter, there is, as they say, always two. There's the antimatter and the matter, but when these two meet, they stop existing, which is an interesting philosophical thing in itself. But the question then is, how come there's more matter? What happened to the other antimatter that is supposed to be out there? So the question of why there is so much more matter than it's oppositely charged and oppositely spinning twin antimatter is actually a question of why anything exists at all. One assumes the universe would treat matter and antimatter symmetrically, and thus that at the moment of the Big Bang equal amounts of matter and antimatter should have been produced. But if that had happened, there would have been a total annihilation of both. Protons would have cancelled the antiprotons. Electrons with anti-electrons, those are positrons, neutrons with antineutrons, and so on, leaving behind a dull sea of photons in a matterless expanse. For some reason, there was excess matter that didn't get annihilated. And here we are. For this, there is no accepted explanation. Okay, so that is a real problem, I would say. Nice one. That was a good one. Next is, what's the fate of the universe? It depends on a factor of unknown value. And I believe that's omega, that thing. Let's see if I can copy that. Copy. Put it into Google. Paste. Look it up. Omega. See? 24th and the last letter of the Greek alphabet. In the Greek numeric system, it has a value of 800. Omega. Or ohm, also. Named after German physicist George Simon Ohm. So the fate of the universe strongly depends on a factor of unknown value. Hold on, let me grab a drink and roll a ciggy. This a measure of the density of matter and energy throughout the cosmos. Alright, so this value, ohm, is a measure of the density of the fate of the universe strongly depends on a factor of unknown value. This unknown value is ohm, and it's a measure of the density of matter and energy throughout the cosmos. Sorry guys, no problem. I'm typing to Grammy from reallibertymedia.com. Go check it out, it's a nice site. reallibertymedia.com. Okay. Let's see, where were we? If ohm is greater than 1, then time-space would be closed, like the surface of an enormous sphere. Oh, no problem. Don't worry. Yeah. If there is no dark energy, such a universe would eventually stop expanding and would instead start contracting, eventually collapsing in on itself in an event dubbed the Big Crunch. If the universe is closed but there is dark energy, the spherical universe would expand forever. See, so they're also not still clear about that. In the previous one, the idea of infiniteness also came. if you conclude that some things are infinite, then you can't have a big crunch, right? Seems to me. All right. That was that. Alternatively, if ohm is less than 1, then the geometry of space would be open, like the surface of a saddle in this case. Its ultimate fate is the Big Freeze, followed by the Big Rip. First, the universe's outward acceleration would tear galaxies and stars apart, leaving all matter frigid and alone. Next, the acceleration would grow so strong that it would overwhelm the effects of the forces that hold atoms together, and everything would be wrenched apart. Yeah, that's also, it doesn't seem right to me. This idea that the universe is expanding at a accelerating rate. That's the claim anyway, right? Yeah. It goes so far as next the acceleration would grow so strong that it would overwhelm the effects of the forces that hold atoms together, and everything would be wrenched apart. So the question that arises is, where is this unrelenting force that drives this acceleration? They will say, well, it's a property of space, right? Well, okay, well, if it's a property of space, fine, but still, where is this relentless force that drives this insane acceleration? And also, didn't they say that nothing can go faster than the speed of light? How fast is the universe expanding according to them at this point? I think it's tough because, like I said at the beginning, when you take a telescope or even infrared Hubble-like satellite, whose name I forgot, but they launched that one after Hubble. Infrared seems to be better to be looking at space, at objects that are real far away. The problem with it is that you're looking in the past. You're looking at things that happened 10, 12, 13 billion years ago. So that's a problem. All of their quote-unquote evidence is based on that. I would say that that it's a thought experiment at the most. So were we? Alternatively, yeah. Another ultimate fate is the Big Freeze, followed by the Big Rip. First, the universe's outward acceleration would tear galaxies and stars apart, and even so big that the atoms won't hold together. And there's one more. If ohm is 1, the universe would be flat, extending like an infinite plane in all directions. Yeah. If there is no dark energy, such a plane or a universe would expand forever, but at a continually decelerating rate, approaching a standstill. If there is dark energy, the flat universe ultimately would experience runaway expansion leading to the Big Rip. Yeah. Interesting. Next one is also interesting. Hold on, guys. Hey Hans, what's up, buddy? Next is, how do measurements collapse quantum wave functions? Yeah. That's another strange thing, apparently. In the strange realm of electrons, photons, and other fundamental particles, quantum mechanics is law. Particles don't behave like tiny balls, but rather like waves that are spread over a large area. What's large here? Each particle is described by a wave function or probability distribution, which tells what its location, velocity, and other properties are more likely to be, but not what those properties are. Yeah, that's also striking, as in, are you telling me that these atoms that my body is made up of are a collection of probabilities? And therefore I could fall apart into dust at any moment? Right? The particle actually has a range of values for all the properties until you experimentally measure one of them. Its location, for example, at which point the particle's wave function, quote-unquote, collapses, and it adopts just one location. People want to go more into quantum mechanics about this collapse. There seems to be a dummy guide here. Let me know if you want to know, and I'll open that. But how and why does measuring a particle make its wave function collapse, producing the concrete reality that we perceive to exist? So that's an interesting one. It almost sounds objectivist, right? Producing the concrete reality that we perceive to exist. The issue, known as a measurement problem, may seem esoteric, but our understanding of what reality is, or if it exists at all, hinges upon the answer. Alright. So they're asking if existence exists. This seems to be a stolen concept. Alright, that question is invalid, I think. I'd have to think about that a bit more, but this is just what comes up at first sight of this question. But this is a metaphysical question, right? But our understanding of what reality is, or if it exists at all, hinges upon the answer. I think the claim that reality doesn't exist is... somebody's calling me. Oh yay. Hello, I'm Walter Hendricks, and you've reached me while I'm doing live radio in the United States. Could you please call me back at some other point?
Hey, met Oscar?
Not now. I'm making live radio.
Okay, is goed.
You, bye. I'm sorry about that, guys. The claim that reality doesn't exist is it can't be made, I think. That's the same as saying truth doesn't exist. It's the same as saying existence doesn't exist. And if that is so, then you cannot make a statement that is true. You see? That's why it refutes itself. You understand? Reality has to exist. There's no other way. If you claim that it doesn't exist, you couldn't say anything about it. Alright? I hope I'm making sense to you guys. Yeah. Hey Lamperdiet, how you doing? Nice ringtone. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. Somebody pasted Dan, definition of objectivism. Any of various theories asserting the validity of objective phenomena over subjective experience, especially realism. And then also 2, an ethical theory that moral good is objectively real, or that the moral precepts are objectively valid. Alright. I'm not sure about if Ayn Rand would agree with you there. I think she would point, if it's an ethical theory, she would point more to yourself, would point more to you, your ego. She talks about egoism in a different way than we do, right? And she's the founder of this stuff, so. The first one seems to be okay, as far as I can tell anyway. Any of various theories asserting the validity of objective phenomena over subjective experience. And I'm not sure about realism. I haven't really dug into what that exactly is. Alright. Yes, Ayn Rand, she's the founder. Fountainhead. And Atlas Shrugged. Where were we? Let's see. But how and why does measuring a particle make its wave function collapse, producing the concrete reality that we perceive to exist? The issue, known as the measurement problem, may seem esoteric, but our understanding of what reality is, or if it exists at all, hinges upon this question. Oh, I just answered that question, right? Good morning, Jules. Next is string theory correct? Now, that's something I really don't know much about. I know there's M theory, seems to be connected to this, which seems to have some support. No idea what that is. They're talking about dimensions and stuff. Come on. My mouse isn't working again. I'm sorry, guys. Pick this up and drag it. There you go. Not so hard, is it? Is string theory correct? When physicists yeah. this reminds me of this video that I even posted on Facebook. Ayn Rand, she's on this show and she's being asked about the Palestinian question. Oh my God. Have you ever seen a Zionist, you know? Yeah. How she talks about the Palestinians. Oh my God. Yeah. When physicists assume all the elementary particles are actually one-dimensional loops or strings, each of which vibrates at a different frequency, physics gets much easier. Ah. String theory allows physicists to reconcile the laws governing particles, called quantum mechanics, with the laws governing space-time, called general relativity, and to unify the four fundamental forces of nature into a single framework. But the problem is, string theory can only work in a universe with 10 or 11 dimensions. 3 large spatial ones, 6 or 7 compacted spatial ones, and a time dimension. Interesting. Time dimension is the only one that I could say something about. I said something at the beginning that the whole concept doesn't make sense to me. However, I'm not a scientist. And also, the ancients, in their writings in the Vedas, have time listed as an element. Remember I told you about the 8 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Right? Those are the 5 gross material ones. And then there's subtle material, 3. Mind, intelligence, and ego. You could do shows on that. However, later, this is from the Bhagavad Gita, however later in the Srimad Bhagavatam you get told about more elemental things of which this universe is supposed to be made. And they include time as a 26th element. So, the compacted spatial dimensions, as well as the vibrating strings themselves, are about 1/1000th of a trillionth of the size of an atomic nucleus. Alright, so this is... this also comes back, by the way. I should add in those ancient Indian Vedas, when they talk about sizes, they go as far as to say the tip of the end of a hair, right? Which is, so small that you can't see, right? So they apparently had this idea that there is smallness and bigness also, by the way. There's this myth about this person. And it was told that he knew all about numbers and how big they could grow. And apparently the people were stunned at the amounts he was able to name. Numbers, that in itself, of course, is an interesting thing. There's this idea out there, for instance, and I haven't thought about this myself too long, but that numbers, they exist, they are real, they say. And one, I guess he was a philosopher, teacher, taught this in 101. He said, I'm writing a number on the board, number 7. And then he wipes it out, and then he asks, did I just destroy the number 7? And they have a discussion about it, and they supposedly come to the conclusion that no, he hasn't destroyed the number 7. The number 7 actually exists. Right? I'm not sure about this. I think that in the question there is assumed that the number 7 exists, because if it didn't, it couldn't be destroyed. Right? So in the word destroyed that the teacher uses, there is already a supposition, no, an assumption that something has been there, that something actually was, right? Otherwise there could have been no destruction. So it's you could call that his assumption, his axiom. So, and you can't prove an axiom. There's no need to prove an axiom because an axiom is self-evident. So got a little problem with that idea about number. On the other hand, a better argument in my thinking would be the fact that how planets behave. There seems to be mathematics to that. If you compare the orbit of Venus with the orbit of Earth, for instance, there seems to be a 5 to 8, how do you put that in English? Verhouding, 5 to 8. Could you guys tell me how you say that? I'll just type it in the chat and maybe you guys can tell me how to put that in words. Where were we, guys? String theory allows physicists to reconcile. Yeah, we did that. Ah, yeah. There is no conceivable way to detect anything that's small. 5 to 8. Thank you, Capt. So there's a ratio of 5 to 8 with Venus and Earth orbits, and 5 to 8 is part of Fibonacci sequence. 5 to 8 ratio, yeah. That's a part of the Fibonacci sequence. Alright, so that would be a more acceptable argument for me to say that numbers are real, because they actually manifest themselves in ratio in nature. Right? So leaves are a good example, could be a good example of that also. These little bugs that eat your groceries on the floor. No, not on the floor, in the garden. Oh, my English is so bad now and then. The form of the shell, right? Now that would be could be a good argument to claim that numbers are real. Okay. So where were we? There's no conceivable way to detect anything that small, and so there's no known way to experimentally validate or invalidate string theory. All right, so that's a problem, because that means that it's what you call that again? Oh my God. It's something I warned you, everybody, about when making statements, that they have to be falsifiable. If they're not falsifiable, then your statement is likely to be put in the basket of conspiracy theory. Right? So, if there is no known way to experimentally validate or invalidate string theory, then that is a big problem, because it's unfalsifiable. There has to be a way to experiment and come to the conclusion via your way of experiment that you haven't disproved this theory. If there is no such thing, then it's unfalsifiable. Objectivism and positivist. Okay, so objectivism and positivism are two different streams of philosophy. Positivism is one that William Roberts, I'm going to type that into this chat here. William Roberts warned us against positivism. Remember, guys? You remember him speaking about positivism, right? Kant, what was his name? Angus Comte, something like that. Yeah, it's very, very dangerous. What was his name, guys? Do you remember? In the chat, anybody in the other chat? I think he was Angus Comte or something. I think it was around 1600 somewhere. He's a philosopher, bringing in positivism, and that's in short, as William Roberts explains it, what the king says is true. That's it in short. I think that's how Roberts put it. Maybe you can still hear him talking about it. He's on UCY.tv in the schedule. William Roberts, check it out. He's a well-researched, he was a well-researched person. And so objectivism is more of this era, by Ayn Rand. She's based a lot of her ideas on Aristotle, who had a couple of good things today to say, but also very stupid things sometimes. Okay. That was number 2, and the last one is there order in chaos. Physicists can't exactly solve the set of equations that describe the behavior of fluids, from water to air to all liquids, to all other liquids and gases. In fact, it isn't known whether a general solution of the so-called Navier-Stokes equations even exist, or if there is a solution whether it describes fluids everywhere or contains inherently unknowable points called singularities. As a consequence, the nature of chaos is not well understood. Physicists and mathematicians wonder, is the weather merely difficult to predict or inherently unpredictable? Does turbulence transcend mathematical descriptions, or does it all make sense when you tackle it with the right math? So, tomato toast subjectivism is well, the objectivist and the subjectivist are basically kind of like two opposites. The objectivist looks out, this is for tomato toe. The objectivist has existence first. right? What's out there is first. It was there before you were born. All right, and but the subjectivist says it goes the other way around. It's a Kantian way of thinking. It says my consciousness is first, and then there's the outside. All right, so the subjectivist, quote unquote, creates his reality. His consciousness comes first, and then the rest. For an objectivist, this is insane. Right? For an objectivist, that would be stupid. The point of the objectivist is that there is primacy of existence and not primacy of consciousness. These are the two things that separate the two. Alright? So primacy of existence says there's out there, and we have a consciousness to grasp it. So those are two very different ways of looking at what is reality. See, the objectivist says reality is. It's out there. It is what it is. A is A. But a subjectivist would say, well, A may be A for you, but it's not A for me. Remember, that's also a stolen concept, that you can't, that argument doesn't hold. It's a stolen concept. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah. Alright, so that was it for this page. So, unless you wanna hear me speak about hermetics, we're gonna, which is what we're gonna do. You would have to, it won't drag again, stupid thing. Call in Skype if you want to join, SOLVINUR, and I'll get you on air. We've got 50 or so, 47 minutes left or so. Let me get that page ready. Where is it? Probably at the end. No, I lost it, I think. That's not so nice. Oh, it's in the brain. Where's my brain? Here it is. Yeah. I'll put this link in the chats so people can follow along. This is an excellent tool. Is an excellent tool for research. Alright, so I got this one in Hermetica at the moment, but you can choose your own topic. Best thing to do is to find the search bar, start typing the first letters of what you want to see, and it'll automatically pop up a couple of options. The best thing is to choose from them. I put it in this one also. Excellent tool. People in that chat should already know. Alright, so this one is on hermetics. Corpus Hermeticum. Link to Thoth, mysticism, Egyptian mysteries. Side things are Babylonian mysteries, Kabbalah, Eleusinian mysteries, Elixir of Life, Gnosticism. Enfin, you can check it out if you follow the link I pasted in the chat. Zoroastrian, ancient mysteries, the Torah, the Talmud, anything you want to know. Alright, so Corpus Hermes something. This article is about Hermes Hermeticism, something like that. Yeah. The Hermetica are Egyptian Greek wisdom texts from the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD, apparently, which are mostly presented as dialogues, like Plato did, in which a teacher, generally identified as Hermes Trismegistus, enlightens a disciple. The text formed the basis of Hermeticism. Right, so that's one we could right-click and check out. They discuss the divine, the cosmos, mind, and nature. Some touch upon alchemy, astrology, and related concepts. The term particularly applies to the corpus Hermeticum, Marsilio Ficino's Latin translation in 14 tracts, of which 8 early printed editions appeared before 1500 and a further 24 by 1641. This collection, which includes the Pomandras, something like that, and some addresses of Hermes to disciples, Tot, Ammon, and Asclepius, was said to have originated in the school of Ammonius Saccas, and to have passed through the keeping of Michael Psellus. It is preserved in 14th century manuscripts. In 1982, Unknown Hermetica, Pembridge, something like that. The last 3 tracts in modern editions were translated independently from another manuscript by Ficino's contemporary, Lodovici Lazzarelli, 1447 to 1500, and first printed in 1507. Extensive quotes of similar material are found in classical authors such as Johann Stobaeus. Parts of the Hermetica appeared in the 4th century Gnostic library found in Nag Hammadi. Oh, that's interesting. That wasn't too long ago, was it? Let me check that. Nag Hammadi. Nag Hammadi is a city in Upper Egypt. Nag Hammadi was known as Boskion, is Greek, in classical antiquity, meaning geese grazing grounds, right? Is that as opposed to the desert as it has been for 5,000 years? It is located on the west bank of the Nile in the Quina Governorate, about 80 kilometers northwest of Luxor. It has a population of about 30,000 who are mostly farmers. Alright, so the Nag Hammadi is best known as the eponym of the archaeological find from 1945, a set of Gnostic texts dated to the 2nd century. See? Jabal al-Tarif near Nag Hammadi was the site where the local farmers found a sealed earthenware jar containing 13 leather-bound papyrus codices, together with pages from another book in December 1945. The mother of the farmers burned one of the books and parts of a second. Really? Why would she do that? Thus 12 of those books, one missing its cover, and the loose pages survive. The writings in these codices dating back to the 2nd century comprised 52 mostly Gnostic tractates we found in a single gravesite. The contents of the Coptic-bound codices were written in Coptic, though the works were probably all translations from Greek. The Nag Hammadi codices contain the only complete copy of the Gospel of Thomas. Apparently that needs a source, that it is indeed the Gospel of Thomas. Nag Hammadi text. There's much more to be known about that I know. Alright. Other works, so parts of the Hermetica appeared in the 4th century Gnostic library found in Nag Hammadi. Other works in Syriac, Arabic, Armenian, Coptic and other languages may also be termed Hermetica. Other famous tract is the Emerald Tablet, which teaches the doctrine as above so below. Yeah, that's one we could go into also. Emerald Tablet. Let's see. We could read it, but let's just... because I think there's a whole text from it. The Emerald Tablet, also known as Smaragdine, whatever. Tablet, or Tabula Smaragdina, is a compact and cryptic piece of Hermetica reputed to contain the secret of prima materia and its transmutation. It was highly regarded by European alchemists as the foundation of their art and its Hermetic tradition. The original source of the Emerald Tablet is unknown. Although Hermes Trismegistus is the author named in the text, its first known appearance is in a book written in Arabic between the 6th and 8th century. The text was translated into Latin in the 12th century. Numerous translations, interpretations and commentaries followed. The layers of meaning in the Emerald Tablet have been associated with the creation of Philosopher's Stone, laboratory experiments, phase transitions, and alchemical magnum opus, the ancient classical element system, and the correspondence between macrocosm and microcosm. Okay, hold on, guys. The text of the Smaragdine Tablet gives its author as Hermes Trismegistus, a legendary Hellenistic combination of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. Despite the claims of antiquity, it's believed to be an Arabic word written between the 6th and 8th centuries. The oldest documentation source of the text is the, I can't read that, it's translated as Book of the Secret of Creation and the Art of Nature, itself a composite of earlier works. This volume is attributed to Balinos or Pseudo-Apollonius of Tyana, who wrote sometime around the 8th century. In his book, Balinos frames the Emerald Tablet as ancient Hermetic wisdom. He tells his readers that he discovered the text in a vault below a statue of Hermes in Tiana, and that inside the vault an old corpse of on a golden throne held the emerald tablet. Right, that sounds like out of a movie. Following Balinas, an early version of the Emerald Tablet appeared in Kitab Ustak something, second book of the Elements of Foundation, attributed to Jabir ibn Hayyan. The Smaragdine tablet was first translated into Latin in the 12th century by Hugo von Santalia. The text is also enlarged in an enlarged 13th century edition of Secretum Secretorium, also known as, well, whatever that Arab is. Let's see if this is worth reading. A translation by Isaac Newton is found among his alchemical papers that are currently housed in King's College Library, Cambridge University. This is the translation by Newton, 1 to 14. 1, 'tis true without error, certain and most true. What the heck is that supposed to be? 2, that which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below. To do the miracles of one only thing. Three, and as things have been and arose from one by the meditation of one, so all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. The sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind has carried in its belly, the earth is its nurse. The father of all perfection in the whole world is here. Its force of power is entire if it be converted into earth. I don't know what this is, guys. 7. Separate thou the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, sweetly with great industry. Industry? 8. It ascends from the earth to the heaven and again, and descends to the earth and receives the force of things superior and inferior. This is so vague. 9. By this means she shall have the glory of the whole world. 10. And thereby all obscure shall fly. No, not all obscure. And thereby all obscurity shall fly from you. 11. Its force is above all force, for it vanquishes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. 12. So was the world created. 13. From this are and do come admirable adaptations, whereof the means or process is here in this. Hence I am called Hermes Trismegist, having the 3 parts of the philosophy of the whole world. And then 14, that which I have said of the operation of the sun is accomplished and ended. Sun with a capital S here. Alright. 17th century translation apparently, or a bit of it. by Newton. Alright, so back, and this browser won't go back again. Stupid thing. Opala. Do you want me to read that on air, JJ? I mean, if you think it's important. I'll read it. I've been wondering about them, JJ, what's going on right now. Where were we, guys? This page, yes, it won't load for me. Come on, there we go. All these, we're back to Hermeticism page. All these are themselves remnants of a more extensive literature, part of the syncretic, intellectualized paganism of their era, a cultural movement that also included the Neoplatonic philosophy of the Greco-Roman mysteries and late Orphic and Pythagoras, Pythagorean, Pythagoras, literature, and influenced Gnostic forms of the Abrahamic religions. Those include Christianity and Islam. There are significant differences. The Hermetica contains no explicit allusions to biblical text and are little concerned with Greek mythology or the technical minutiae of metaphysical Neoplatonism. However, most of these schools do agree in attributing the creation of the world to a demiurge rather than the supreme being. Okay. This demiurge. I'm not sure. Was that Aristotle's idea? But it's something to look up. I think it has to do with the belief that the creation is as good as it is, given the limitations that the gods had. Right? The limitations being having to deal with gross matter. Right? So I think that's what demiurge is about. A demiurge being. And it's also and in accepting reincarnation, so there's differences in that. Although Neoplatonic philosophers who quote apocryphal work, apocryphal, that's how you pronounce that, apocryphal. Those are the works you need to read, by the way, instead of only the Bible, also the apocryphal works. In this case of Orpheus, Zoroaster, and Pythagoras, and other figures, almost never cite Hermes Trismegistus. The tracts were still popular enough in the 5th century to be argued against by Augustine the Hippo in the City of God. Yeah, that was his name, right? August Comte, that was his name. August Comte. Oh, come on, you stupid browser, do as I say. My God, stupid thing. Take the other browser. August Comte. Here we go. August Comte. Yeah, yes, this is probably a good one. This one is also good. Open that. Copy that for this one. Back to the chat. Here, this is about... I do? This is a link for positivism idea. Comte is the founder. There. Dun 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 dun. Alright, so where were we? Character and antique. The extant Egyptian Greek texts dwell upon the oneness of goodness of God, the oneness and goodness of God, urge purification of the soul, and defend pagan religious practices such as the veneration of images. Their concerns are practical in nature, their ends a spiritual rebirth through the enlightenment of the mind. Seeing within myself an immaterial vision that came from the mercy of God, I went out myself into an immortal body, and now I am not what I was before. I have been born in mind. Yeah, well, Grammy, it doesn't necessarily have to do with positive in that sense. Yeah. It's not like it's opposite of negative. I'm not quite sure how to explain it. The only thing that I remember is William Roberts, whatever the king says is true. That's the shortest way I can define this philosophy of positivism. Whatever the king says, you know, whatever the prince says. It's based on the idea of authority. I'm assuming this guy, Auguste Comte, who I've never researched, by the way. I didn't follow William Roberts' advice. There's so many philosophical streams out there, and you know, I trust him. I still do. If he says positivism sucks, you know, it seems to me that it's a form of Platonism. While they are difficult to date with precision, the texts of the corpus were likely redacted between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD. During the Renaissance, these texts were believed to be of ancient origin, no, not ancient, Egyptian origin, and even today some readers believe them to date from Pharaonic Egypt, since Plato's Timaeus dwelt upon the great antiquity of the Egyptian teachings upon which the philosopher purported to draw. Yeah, that's one of Plato's writings we might get into reading. Apparently all of his writings are on different subjects, so that's good. Dwelt upon the great antiquity of the Egyptians' teachings upon which the philosophers purported to draw, scholars were willing to accept that these texts were the sources of Greek ideas. Right, so but the Egyptians are a bit older, I think. However, the classical scholar Isaac Casaubon successfully argued that some, mainly those dealing with philosophy, betrayed too recent a vocabulary. Hellenism in the language itself pointed to a Greek-era origin. Many lost Greek texts, and many of the surviving Vulgate books contain discussions of alchemy clothed in philosophical metaphor. And one text, the Asclepius, lost in Greek but partially preserved in Latin, contained a bloody prophecy of the end of Roman rule in Egypt and the resurgence of pagan Egyptian power. Thus, it would be fair to assess that the Corpus Hermeticus as intellectually eclectic, whatever that is. Yes. Yeah. More recent research, while affirming the late dating in a period of syncretic cultural ferment in Roman Egypt, suggests more continuity with the culture of Pharaonic Egypt than had previously been believed. There are many parallels with Egyptian prophecies and hymns to the gods, but the closest comparison can be found in Egyptian wisdom literature, which is characteristically couched in words of advice from a father to a son. Demotic late Egyptian papyri contain substantial sections of a dialogue of Hermetic type between Thoth and a disciple. Right, so that's where we should be going then, the writings of Thoth. And why? Because they are older, and the more older sources you can get, the closer you are to the source. Egyptologist Sir William Flinders Petine states that some texts in the Hermetic corpus date back to the 6th century BC, during the Persian period. Some similarities between the Demotic texts and Platonic philosophy could be the result of Plato and his followers having drawn on Egyptian sources. Well, you would think so, yes. As far as I know, all of the Greek philosophers got their education, their final education in Egypt. Later history is this. Many Hermetic texts were lost to Western culture during the Middle Ages, but rediscovered in Byzantine copies and popularized in Italy during the Renaissance. The impetus for this revival came from the Latin translation by Marsilio Ficino, a member of the Medici court. Aha. Those are bankers, right? Who published a collection of 13 tractates in 1471 as the Prostate a Sapientia Dei. The Hermetica provided a seminal impetus in the development of Renaissance thought and culture, having a profound impact on alchemy and modern magic, as well as the influencing philosophers such as Giordano Bruno and Pico della Mirandola, Ficino's student. This influence continued as late as the 17th century with authors such as Sir Thomas Browne. Although the most famous exemplars of Hermetic literature were products of Greek speakers under Roman rule, the genre did not suddenly stop with the fall of the empire, but continued to be produced in Coptic, Syriac, Arabic, Armenian, and Byzantine Greek. The most famous example of this latter Hermetica is the Emerald Tablet, known from medieval Latin and Arabic manuscripts with a possible Syriac source. Little else of this rich literature is easily accessible to non-specialists. The mostly Gnostic Nag Hammadi library, discovered in 1945, also contained one previously unknown Hermetic text called the Ogdoad and the Ennead, a description of a Hermetic initiation into Gnosis that has led to new perspectives on the nature of Hermeticism as a whole, particularly due to the research of Jean-Pierre Mahe. Alright. I think that's it what we can glean from this page. Alright, so the next best thing to do would either be to check out these tracts. Let's see if we can open that stupid browser, come on. Or we can look up some writings of Thoth. That would be the other possibility. Let's see. Yeah. Come on, drag. Not. There we go. Archive.org. Let's see what we can, if we can still access that. See what we can find. You guys have a simple search bar, yes? Let's see what this is. Hold on, guys, I'm trying to find something here. This doesn't seem to work. Oh, it does. But is this readable? No, this is useless. Blah, 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 blah. Is that how it's translated? Huh. See if this works. Okay, I should open that. We've only got a couple of more minutes to go, but this is called the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean. I thought Thoth was Egyptian. Blah blah. Maybe we can get further into this next week. The history of the tablets, translated in the following pages, is strange and beyond the belief of modern scientists. Their antiquity is stupendous, dating back to some 3,600 years BC. 3,600 years BC. This is probably the same problem we run into with the Vedas. You know, they also claim that the Vedas were actually always existing, and that they have only been put to words because people became too stupid to remember them. Right? So, but that's a problem if you make such a claim. Well, it's always existed, or it's 36,000 years old. Based on what? Based on what the book says itself? Well, that would be circular reasoning. That's not allowed. Furthermore, the numbers, when talking about, you know, these kinds of huge periods of time, also in the Vedas, they talk about yugas, and these numbers are important. It's the numbers that are important, right? A yuga is 432.000 years. Now, it's not the amount of time that's being the clue here. It's the number. It's 432. Think of 432 hertz. Right? Same goes for 108, which is one of their sacred numbers. That's exactly 1/4 of 432. See, so if there's anything in these texts with numbers, then it's probably not to be taken literally. That would be my approach anyway. So their antiquity is stupendous, dating back to some 36,000 years BC. The writer is Thoth, an Atlantean priest king who founded a colony in ancient Egypt after the sinking of the mother country. So 36,000 years, and the builder, the colony of Egypt. All right, this takes back the history of Egyptians a long time, assuming this king didn't live much longer than we do. He was the builder of the Great Pyramid of Giza, erroneously attributed to Cheops. It is in it he incorporated his knowledge of the ancient wisdom and also securely secreted records and instruments of ancient Atlantis. This reminds me of a prediction by, you guys know how bad I am with names, right? This guy was a doctor also, I think. But is mainly known for his predictions. And he predicted that there would be a secret chamber between the paws of the Sphinx. And the latest thing I heard about that only was that they did some seismic research and found that there is a chamber there, apparently. But I haven't heard anything more than that. If they were allowed to go dig for it or anything. When the time came for him to leave Egypt, he erected the Great Pyramid over the entrance to the great halls of Amenti, placed in it his records, and appointed guards for the secrets from among the highest of his people. In later times, yes, Logan, Edgar Casey, that was him. Very good, thank you. Edgar Casey. In later times, the descendants of these guards became the pyramid priests, by which Thoth was deified as the god of wisdom, the recorder, by those in the age of darkness which followed his passing. In legend, the hall of Amenti became the underworld, the hall of the gods, where the soul passed after death for judgment. Interesting. 55, only a few more minutes left. During later ages, the echo of thought passed into the bodies of men in the manner described in the tablets. As such, he incarnated 3 times. In his last being known as Hermes, the thrice-born. In this incarnation, he left the writings known to modern occultists as the Emerald Tablets, a later and far lesser exposition of the ancient mysteries. Right. So what it looks like to me now, this may change of course, but is that Thoth is a mythical figure, and we should take writings from that mythical figure. Yeah, and not 3 births later, right? Because that's further from the source. You should always try to get as close to the source as possible. So I may try looking for texts that are actually written by Thoth as he was, what was it, 30,006 years ago? To even 50,000 here, it says. The tablets translated in this work are 10 which were left in the Great Pyramid at the custody of the pyramid priests. The 10 are divided into 13 parts for the sake of convenience. The last 2 are so great and far-reaching in their import that at present it is forbidden to release them to the world at large. By whom? What kind of nonsense is this? However, in those contained herein are secrets which will prove an inestimable value to the serious student. They should be read not once but 100 times, for only thus can the true meaning be revealed. Yeah, just keep repeating until it becomes fact, right? A casual reading will give glimpses of beauty, but more intensive study will open avenues of wisdom to the seeker. Alright guys, thanks everybody for listening. People in the chat, 8 Hawks, Dan, Grammy Mary, hey, Hopper, Joe and Jules, Logan, Lamperty, Matty Clues, Tomato Toe, thanks a lot for listening, and One Anon also. Thanks a lot for listening. This has been the Solvinur Event. I will be back next week, maybe with some readings of Thoth. Maybe we will go some whole other direction. I don't know. I can't tell what's in the future, guys. So, take care. I hope the winter isn't too bad for you guys. It's pretty okay over here. We haven't had a cold really yet, so that helps. I haven't not to scratch the window in the morning. Yeah, I was. Yeah. So thanks a lot again. Take care and see you guys next week. Bye bye.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste